I'll never forget the night she said it. That one line that cut deeper than any insult a stranger could throw at me. We were at a dinner party hosted by some of my wife's friends. The wine was flowing, laughter echoing around the table, and everyone was trading stories about relationships. I was in a good mood, proud even, because I had spent the whole day fixing up our backyard. My wife, Linda, looked beautiful that night, glowing under the candlelight. For a moment, I thought I was the luckiest man in the world. But then, out of nowhere, she leaned back in her chair, swirled her wine, and with a smirk said, "Oh, him? He'd do anything for it." The table erupted with chuckles. A couple of her friends shot me curious looks. Someone even raised a brow, waiting for my reaction. I froze. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "Anything for it," I repeated, my voice calm but cold. Linda giggled, brushing it off like it was nothing. "Relax, honey. It's just a joke. Everyone knows you're, well, you know, a man who can't say no to his wife." Her words hung in the air like smoke. "A joke," she said, but the way she said it, with that smug little smile, made it feel like a confession. Like she had tested me, weighed me, and decided I was predictable. I glanced around the table. No one dared meet my eyes for long. They laughed nervously, stirred their drinks, changed the subject. But the damage was done. My wife had just told an entire table of people that I was weak, that I was desperate, that I'd do anything just to keep her happy. And maybe that's when something inside me shifted. The rest of the evening blurred. I heard voices, laughter, the clinking of glasses, but all I could focus on was that one sentence replaying in my head. He'd do anything for it. Driving home, Linda was humming to herself, clearly unconcerned. Finally, I asked, "Did you mean what you said back there?" She laughed again, rolling her eyes. "Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. Everyone jokes about their husbands. It's harmless." But it wasn't harmless. Not to me. Not when I saw the way her friends looked at me after she said it. Like I was some pathetic man tethered to his wife's every whim. When we pulled into the driveway, she leaned over, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Lighten up, will you? You know I didn't mean anything by it." I nodded, but inside I wasn't nodding. Inside, something was already unraveling. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the years we'd spent together. The sacrifices I had made. The long nights at work. The weekends fixing up the house. The loyalty, the trust, the blind devotion. And now, to her, it all boiled down to a joke at a dinner party. He'd do anything for it. But she was wrong. She had no idea what I was capable of. And I knew, with absolute clarity, that I was going to prove her wrong. What she didn't know was that her little joke had just set something in motion, something she wouldn't see coming until it was far too late. Because a man like me doesn't forget. And I sure as hell don't forgive. The next morning, Linda acted as if nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee, slid the newspaper across the table to me, and asked if I wanted eggs. Business as usual. But I wasn't the same man who sat at that dinner table the night before. Something had cracked open inside me. I watched her as she moved around the kitchen, calm, confident, smiling. Not a shred of guilt. That's when I realized it wasn't just a slip of the tongue. No, my wife believed what she'd said. Deep down, she really thought I'd do anything for it. That I was weak, predictable, safe. And in her mind, a man who's safe is a man who can be taken for granted. That thought burned in me all morning. I went to work, sat in my office, and tried to focus on invoices and phone calls. But my mind kept drifting back to her smirk. He'd do anything for it. Over and over. Like she had branded me with those words. That evening, when I came home, she was chatting on the phone with one of those same dinner guests. Laughing. I caught just enough to hear my name. She lowered her voice when I walked in, then hung up quickly, smiling as if nothing had happened. That's when the suspicion started to grow. What exactly did she mean by anything? Did she tell her friends more than I knew? Was she using me as the punchline to jokes when I wasn't around? Or worse, was there another man, one she compared me to behind closed doors? I didn't accuse her. Not yet. Instead, I decided to test her. The following weekend, she asked if I could drive her across town to a brunch with friends. Normally, I'd say yes without hesitation. But this time, I shook my head. No, I've got things to do. She blinked. What things? Doesn't matter, I said simply, turning back to my paper. For a moment, her smile faltered. She wasn't used to me saying no. She recovered quickly, brushing it off, but I noticed the way her jaw tightened. That night, I pushed further. She asked if I could help her with some online order, setting up a new account for some boutique website she liked. Again, I said no. You'll figure it out. She stared at me, half annoyed, half surprised. What's gotten into you lately? I looked her straight in the eye. Nothing. Just busy. And that's when I saw it. The first flicker of doubt in her eyes. Like a crack running down the surface of glass. I didn't explain myself. I didn't need to. I wanted her to feel that shift, to sense the ground moving under her feet. Because here's the truth. She thought she had me figured out. Thought I was predictable. But what she didn't know was that I'd already started pulling back. Already started making moves she wouldn't expect. And when the moment was right, I was going to prove to her, and to myself, that she was dead wrong about me. What she thought was a harmless joke was about to become the start of her worst nightmare. And the best part? She wouldn't even see it coming. By Monday, the shift between us was undeniable. She noticed it even if she wouldn't admit it. The way I answered shorter. The way I lingered less in conversation. The way I stopped volunteering to handle the little chores she always pushed onto me. For years, I'd carried the weight gladly, paying the bills, fixing the leaky faucets, mowing the lawn, chauffeuring her around town. It was just who I was, the dependable husband. But now, every time she asked something of me, I felt those words again, ringing in my head. He'd do anything for it. So I stopped, and she noticed. On Wednesday, she came into the living room while I was reading. "You've been different lately," she said, arms crossed. "Different how?" I asked, not looking up. "You're colder. Distant." I closed the book, set it on the table, and finally met her eyes. "Maybe I just realized I don't need to jump every time you call." Her face flushed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Exactly what it sounds like." Silence stretched between us. For the first time in years, she didn't have a quick comeback, no playful quip to defuse the tension. She turned on her heel and left the room. But her reaction told me something important. She didn't like losing her grip. That Friday, I tested her again. She wanted me to drive her to a ladies' night across town. Normally, I not only drive her, but wait up for her return. This time, I told her flatly, "Take an Uber." She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Seriously?" "Seriously," I said. "You're independent, aren't you? Handle it." Her lips tightened. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door harder than necessary. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was worried, but because I was waiting. Sure enough, around midnight, I heard the sound of a car door closing outside. I peered through the blinds and caught sight of her stepping out of a dark sedan. Not an Uber. A man's car. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't recognize the vehicle, and she slipped out quickly, glancing around before heading up the walkway. She moved quietly, like she didn't want to be noticed. The front door opened. She tried to tread lightly, but I was already in the hallway. She froze when she saw me standing there in the dark. "You're up?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. "Yeah," I said evenly. Couldn't sleep. Her eyes darted past me, avoiding my stare. The girls and I lost track of time. "Uh-huh." She kissed my cheek, forced, then hurried upstairs without another word. I stood there, every nerve on fire. So that was it. The joke at the dinner party hadn't been just a joke. It was rooted in the way she saw me. Weak. Gullible. A man who wouldn't dare question her. She thought she had me trapped in that role forever. But she was wrong. That night, I promised myself I wouldn't just prove her wrong. I'd do it in a way that made her realize she'd lost something she could never get back. Because what she didn't know was, I'd already started keeping score. And soon, she was going to learn exactly who she was dealing with. The image of that dark sedan outside our house stayed with me all weekend. I could still hear the faint slam of the car door, still see the way she hurried up the path, shoulders hunched like she was sneaking home instead of returning from ladies' night. She thought I'd swallow her excuse. And a year ago, maybe I would have, but not anymore. Sunday morning, while she slept in, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a notepad. It wasn't rage that filled me, it was focus. I'd built businesses before, solved problems most men would have walked away from. I knew how to track details, connect dots, and set traps. And now, the problem sitting in front of me was my own wife. I started with her phone. Linda guarded it more lately, never leaving it out of sight. But I'd noticed her habit. When she showered, she left it charging on her nightstand. That morning, I slipped in quietly. The screen was locked, of course, but I didn't need her messages, not yet. I only needed the basics. Call history. A few quick swipes, and I had a name. Eric. Calls at odd hours, short but frequent. I memorized the number, slipped the phone back exactly as I'd found it, and walked out before the water shut off. By noon, I knew who he was. A little digging, a reverse lookup, and suddenly Eric wasn't just a contact. He was a personal trainer at a gym across town. Younger than me by at least 15 years, from what his business profile showed. Fit. Smug grin plastered across every photo. So that was it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation would give her the chance to lie, to twist, to deny. No, I wanted more. Proof she couldn't wriggle out of. That week, I started laying the groundwork. I bought a small GPS tracker, the kind you can slip into a car without notice. Friday morning, while she was in the shower again, I slipped out and tucked it under the passenger seat of her SUV. A perfect hiding spot. When she told me she had another girls' night planned, I only nodded. Have fun, I said, even kissed her cheek on the way out the door. She looked at me strangely, as though my easy acceptance confused her. But as soon as her taillights disappeared, I opened the tracker app on my phone. The little dot moved across the map, steady and sure. Not toward the restaurant she'd named, but straight across town. My chest tightened when I saw where she stopped. The gym. His gym. She stayed parked for over 2 hours. Long enough to erase any doubt about what was happening inside. When she finally returned home, she was humming again, just like after that first dinner party. I poured her a glass of wine, played the part of the dutiful husband, and let her ramble about her fun night with the girls. But inside, I was already 10 steps ahead. She thought I'd never notice. She thought I was too weak to question her. She thought I'd do anything for it. What she didn't know was that I was building a case. A quiet, methodical plan that would leave her with nothing but the truth she couldn't escape. And the best part? She still believed I was in the dark. The next morning, Linda moved around the kitchen like everything was normal. Cheerful, humming, asking me about weekend plans. But now every word she spoke sounded rehearsed, like lines she'd practiced in the mirror. I couldn't help but wonder if she'd used that same smile, that same casual tone on him. She thought she was clever, but she didn't realize she was living under surveillance. That Monday, I took a detour on the way to work. Parked 2 blocks from the gym, camera in hand. I waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:43 sharp, Linda's SUV rolled into the lot. She wasn't in workout clothes, no yoga mat, no sneakers. She walked in wearing jeans and a blouse, her hair down like she was going to brunch. 2 hours later, she walked out with Eric. He wasn't hiding his grin. He brushed her arm casually as they said goodbye, then leaned close, too close, whispering something that made her laugh. She glanced around quickly before slipping into her car, as if the entire world could see the truth written across her face. Click, click, click. The camera captured everything. That night, she came home flushed, glowing, dropping her purse on the counter like she'd just finished a spa day. Traffic was awful, she sighed. Yeah, I asked, sipping my coffee. Where'd you go? Oh, just lunch with the girls. You know how it is. I nodded, my face calm, my heart steady. Inside, I was already sliding the memory card from my camera into a safe place. Over the next week, I gathered more. Phone records, GPS logs, photos. Each piece fit neatly into a puzzle, one she thought she'd hidden, but I was carefully assembling in silence. But I didn't want just proof. I wanted her to feel it, the slow unraveling, the creeping realization that her control was gone. So, I started the game. One evening, while she was showering, I placed a single folded note in her purse. No signature, no accusations. Just 6 words written in block letters. Does Eric's wife know about you? I waited. The next day, she was jittery. She kept checking her phone, snapping at me over small things, forcing a smile when I caught her watching me too long. She didn't mention the note, but I saw it in her eyes. Suspicion. Fear. She couldn't tell if I knew. She couldn't tell if someone else knew. And I let her stew in that doubt. That night in bed, she rolled toward me, laying her head on my chest, almost as if seeking comfort. You love me, don't you? She asked softly. I always have, I replied. But love isn't the same as trust. She stiffened. I could feel her heartbeat quicken against me. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. The silence said more than words ever could. Because now, the balance had shifted. She wasn't in control anymore, and I wasn't the man who'd do anything for it. By now, every move she made looked suspicious. When her phone buzzed, she'd tilt it away from me. When she left the room, she took her purse with her, even if she was only going into the kitchen. It was the behavior of someone protecting a secret, and I let her think she was succeeding. But behind the curtain, I was pulling every string. Wednesday evening, she breezed through the front door later than usual. "Sorry," she chirped. "Stopped for coffee with Claire." Her tone was light, but her hair was too neat, her blouse too crisp for a woman who'd supposedly been chatting in a cafe for 2 hours. I smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and said nothing. But after she fell asleep, I pulled up the GPS tracker. She hadn't been anywhere near a cafe. Her car had sat parked in front of Eric's apartment. The next morning, I slipped another note into her purse. Coffee with Claire? Or with Eric? By lunch, she was pale, snapping at the kids over nothing. She avoided my eyes at dinner, laughing too loudly when they told stories, as if masking the storm brewing in her head. I just sat there, calm, patient, sipping my drink like I had all the time in the world. That night, when she came to bed, she tried again. Her hand slid along my arm, her voice soft. "You've been so different lately. Distant. If something's wrong, you can tell me." I turned to her, met her gaze, and asked, "What do you think is wrong?" She blinked, lips parting, but no words came. Finally, she forced a smile. "Nothing. Forget I said anything." But I didn't forget. Neither did she. The next day, I raised the stakes. I called the gym, asked for Eric, and when he came on the line, I said nothing. Just silence. He repeated hello a few times before hanging up. 5 minutes later, Linda's phone buzzed. She read the message quickly, face tightening, then slipped into the bathroom to type a reply. I didn't need to know what she wrote. I already had my answer. She thought she was juggling 2 worlds, the loyal wife at home, the secret lover on the side. What she didn't know was that both those worlds were collapsing, inch by inch, because I was cutting away the supports quietly, patiently, without ever raising my voice. By Friday, she was unraveling. She paced the house, her smiles brittle, her tone sharp. At dinner, she barely touched her food. "You okay?" I asked, my voice calm. "Fine," she snapped. Why wouldn't I be? I only shrugged, leaned back in my chair, and let the silence answer for me. Because the truth was simple, she was no longer worried about keeping her secret. She was worried about how much I already knew. And that fear? That was only the beginning. By Saturday morning, Linda was a ghost of herself. The confident woman who used to hum in the kitchen was gone. In her place stood someone jittery, flustered, and suspicious of every shadow. She jumped when her phone buzzed, stared out the window too long, and snapped at me for leaving my shoes by the door. It was working. She didn't know what I knew, how much I had seen, or how much longer she could keep the mask on. And uncertainty eats people alive faster than truth ever can. That afternoon, I casually mentioned, thinking of inviting some friends over next weekend. A little dinner party. Her fork clinked against her plate. "Dinner party," she repeated, eyes darting to mine. "Yeah," I said smoothly. "You know, like the one we went to a few weeks back." I held her gaze. "Remember the joke you made?" Color drained from her face. She forced a laugh, waving it off. "Oh, come on. You're not still hung up on that." "I don't hang up on things," I said. "Not anymore." She dropped her eyes, fiddling with her napkin, silent. Later that night, I slipped the memory card of photos into my desk drawer, right where I knew she'd find it if she went snooping. A baited hook. Sure enough, Sunday morning, while I napped on the couch, I heard the faint scrape of that drawer opening. A pause, then the soft shuffle of hurried footsteps. When I walked into the kitchen, she was pale, the memory card clenched tight in her hand. "What's this?" she demanded, her voice trembling. I poured myself coffee before answering. "Evidence," I said calmly. "Insurance. A mirror, really. Want me to show you what's on it?" Her lips parted, eyes wide. For once, she couldn't summon a lie. I leaned closer, my voice low, measured. "You thought I'd do anything for it. That I was predictable. Weak. But what you didn't realize," I paused, letting the silence tighten like a rope around her throat, "is that I was watching the whole time." She backed away, clutching the card as if it burned her fingers. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut in. "I understand that every time you lied about ladies' night, you were with him. I understand you thought I'd never question it. And I understand you're only just now realizing you've already lost. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but I felt nothing. No pity, no urge to comfort. Only a cold, steady calm. I walked past her, opened the front door, and let the cool air fill the silence. Next weekend, I said without turning. Dinner party. Be ready. Her voice cracked behind me. Why? I turned, met her gaze one last time, and let a faint smile cross my lips. Because that's when you're going to find out exactly what I meant when I said you just lost something you can't get back. And then I left her standing there, clutching the truth in her hands, knowing her world was about to collapse, and powerless to stop it. The following Saturday, the house was spotless. The dining table was set, candles arranged, wine glasses gleaming in the low light. Linda fluttered around nervously, straightening napkins that didn't need straightening, adjusting plates that were already perfect. But her hands shook. Her smile looked carved from stone. She hadn't asked again why I wanted the dinner party. She already knew she wouldn't like the answer. By 7 o'clock, our guests began arriving. Neighbors, a couple of her close friends, even one of her co-workers she admired. I played the gracious host, shaking hands, pouring wine, making sure everyone felt comfortable. Linda forced laughter, pretending everything was fine. But her eyes kept darting toward me, wide and restless, waiting for the blow. When everyone had filled their plates and the conversation was warm, I stood at the head of the table. I raised my glass. A toast, I said, smiling. Chairs shifted. Conversations quieted. All eyes turned to me. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Friendship, loyalty, respect, these things mean a lot to me. A man's word, after all, is his bond. Linda's knuckles whitened around her glass. But sometimes, I continued, trust gets broken. And when it does, you have two choices. Pretend it never happened, or hold up the mirror and make sure everyone sees the truth. A murmur rippled through the room. Linda shifted in her chair. Honey, she whispered, her voice tight. Don't. I looked straight at her. You once joked that I'd do anything for it. That I was weak. Predictable. But you were wrong. I don't do anything for it. I do everything for respect. I pulled the small remote from my pocket and pressed the button. The TV across the room flickered on. And there, clear as day, appeared a slideshow of photos. Linda walking out of Eric's gym, laughing with him, leaning just a little too close. Her SUV parked in front of his apartment, timestamp glowing in the corner. Gasps filled the room. Forks clattered onto plates. Linda shot to her feet, face pale. This isn't what it looks like, she blurted. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, I said, my voice calm, steady. The dinners, the late nights, the ladies' nights. All lies. And I wanted you all to know, because for years, I gave her everything. Loyalty, trust, love. And in return, she gave me betrayal. The silence was suffocating. Her friends stared at her, wide-eyed. Her co-worker whispered something under her breath. Linda's eyes brimmed with tears. Please, can we talk about this privately? I shook my head. No more secrets. Not anymore. Tonight wasn't about humiliating you, Linda. It was about proving a point. To you, to everyone here, and to myself. I am not the man you thought I was. I don't beg. I don't crawl. And I don't do anything for it. I raised my glass again. To respect. To truth. To freedom. I drank, set the glass down, and walked out of the room. Behind me, I heard the stunned silence, broken only by Linda's choked sobs. As I stepped into the night air, I felt lighter than I had in years. She had gambled everything on the belief that I was too weak to fight back. But now she knew the truth. She hadn't just lost my loyalty. She'd lost me, and there was no way to get that back.